Hey everybody, this is Rafi from Zerb, and in this video we're going to go over the breadcrumbs component in Foundation. So breadcrumbs is a really useful component to show users where they're going or where they can go back to or where they came from. So from the old Hansel and Gretel story, they left breadcrumbs, so when they went to the evil woman's house that was going to eat them, they could find their way back home. So that's just an interesting story about where the name breadcrumbs came from, but let's go ahead and take a look at this component and how we can modify it. So right before we jump into the code, let's take a look at a couple examples of breadcrumbs in use, just so it's clear how they work and why you would use them. So one example is this registration form. So we want to take our users through a step-by-step registration form, but it's good that they could see ahead how many steps they have to take. If they miss a step and need to go back, they can simply click on the link and go back. So that's one example. Another example is perhaps in like an e-commerce site. So we started at the home screen, then we went to computer systems, then we went to laptops, now we're in Apple laptops. So it could take the users down this pipeline. If I want to go back, let's say to laptops and notebooks, I can easily click back. So this is really just good for user experience. And then another use case is also on the Foundation building block site. If we take a look at a specific component, you'll see that there is a breadcrumb here to tell you that this component actually comes from the containers section, and then you have the name of the component itself. So you can see that there is kind of an active state here and then some other links that you can navigate back to. So let's take a look at the code and actually build a breadcrumb. Okay, so there's some really important things to note on this markup. So since Foundation is built from the ground up with accessibility in mind, you're going to see that there's a lot of accessibility markup in these components. They're made to help users that are visually impaired and might be using a screen reader or definitely keyboard navigation to navigate the website. So let me explain what some of those things are and then also how the breadcrumbs themselves are built. So we're wrapping the breadcrumbs with a nav tag, and that is useful. It's an HTML5 tag that is available for navigations. Then the ARIA label is going to actually call out the text that's inside of it. So when a screen reader arrives at this component, it'll actually say the words "you are here" in this case. Now, of course, you can change this text to anything that you want. It should just be descriptive of the component itself. And then the role of navigation is also important for that same reason. So then inside of that, we have a UL with a class of breadcrumbs. So that's pretty standard. And then we have our list items with anchor tags. So these are the links that can be navigated back to in this case. So we have a list item with a class of disabled here. Now this is something that you can optionally use. You don't have to, but is a particular style that when you hover over the component, you can see over here that I have a not allowed cursor. So that's really important, again, for somebody who has having trouble seeing the screen really well. This is very obvious, like showing that this is not an available link. Now you might use this in some cases where it's a page that you don't want the user to get to until they've completed a step in a process or something like that. That could be one use case for the disabled class. Now notice the disabled class doesn't have an anchor tag inside. There's different ways to disable a link, and you could actually put ARIA disabled on the link itself, but in this case, since we are putting this component on every single page, we could just remove the anchor tag altogether. So that's how you would disable a link if you needed to. Now the current page also doesn't have a link or an anchor tag. And the reason for that is because that's currently the page that the user's on. So in this case, that would be cloning, and you could see that the text is a little bit darker there. So the way that's achieved is just a list item without an anchor tag. So it would basically look like that. Just an empty list item with some text. So let's say current. Okay, but the difference here is that we have an accessibility class on the span here, show for SR. And show for SR is show for screen reader. So this is a visibility class that will only show this content, the word current, because it's inside the span, to a screen reader. So if somebody was visually impaired, they landed on this component, they got to the word cloning, it would actually read out current cloning. And so that's just a little bit more contextual. Now again, you can change this text to anything you want, but it should be something that really describes the link that they're on or the page that they're on. So we can rearrange these any way we want. If we want to get rid of this disabled one, we could do that. And then let's say we want features to be the one that the page of the person that's up there on. We can just move this span over here, kind of move this over here, right? And then over here, we're gonna put an anchor tag around this, right? So this is another way to set up this is a way to set up your breadcrumb basically on multiple different pages. You're going to just move around the anchor tags and then the current link. So this is the basic setup. Now if you want to change the divider, this default divider is actually not in the markup, as you can see here. It's created with a before pseudo element. So we could take a look at that and find out what the markup is for that by using the inspector. And we can change it to anything that we want. So if we click on one of the list items and we find, so it's using an after pseudo element. So we'll just change that. So we'll just copy that. And let's hop over into our CSS and let's go ahead and just paste that in, and then we can add some CSS to this. So the way we would change that is by using the content attribute, which is already being used to create that particular slash. So instead we'll change it to something else. So if I leave it empty, you see that the slash in between goes away. So if we want to use something else, we could use any kind of character code there. We can link to an image. It's really up to you. You just can use the content the content property there, and then you can change that to anything that you want. So that's the basics of the foundation breadcrumb. There are Sas variables here that you could use in the settings file if you're using the Sas version. Otherwise, you can change up anything in the foundation CSS. So this is just one of the many components in Foundation. If you want to learn all the components in Foundation the fastest way, that's our Intro to Foundation class. I'll put the link below. Make sure to check that out. And this is Rafi from the Foundation team signing off. Thanks for watching.